and welcome, Lorraine, to our podcast. It's lovely to see you. Today we're going to talk about masterclasses. And there is, we have to confess, a vested interest in that we are all involved in running masterclasses in the summer. So it's an opportunity to invite people to the classes, but also to give people an idea of what a masterclass is. I think that there's still a quite negative conception of masterclasses because people have seen things on YouTube of, students being put through the mill, as it were, by master teachers and famous pianists. And I think that for some people, the masterclass can be quite intimidating, and it doesn't have to be. We've all participated in them and I personally have found them very valuable. So actually, I think what we might do to start with is could perhaps each of you define what you believe a masterclass is. What's your definition of a masterclass? So we'll start with you, Lorraine.
Okay, so for me, it's really very much about sharing. So I have been to many over the years, and as an observer and as a teacher and then as a performer, and I just feel it's really about sharing your own unique experience, your knowledge, and it's also and listening to the student's voice as well, because I think both student and teacher can learn, and I think we learn from our students constantly because they may have an insight or a way of hearing something or thinking about something that we might not have thought of. So I think it's really important to be always humble and open, and I do think it is not about the great master teacher sharing their greater knowledge. I think it's a forum for discussion and sharing of music, and I think all music is about exactly that, sharing, whether you're performing, listening, adjudicating, whatever it is you're doing. So I just see that as a different format of sharing music.
Michael.
I completely agree with you, Lorraine. In the shortest of terms, in my opinion, a masterclass is just an open piano lesson where everyone can just sit in and listen. That's all. I know when Fran spoke about, the negative connotations, and I mean, if you look at the word itself, master class, you have this master, allegedly someone of great wisdom that passes down all their, technical solutions or their opinions or interpretive, wisdom, shall we say, when it comes to performances. And of course, the student is always very shy because I was very, very, very timid and put, like you said, Fran, put through the paces. But that is the traditional, I don't want to ruffle feathers, and the more archaic view of masterclass that's certainly not my opinion of what masterclass is. And I agree with, Lorraine, it's a sharing of ideas, because with the archaic form of masterclass, and I've said in quite a few, it then became a power play of not just the student, the master and the student, but also, there's every chance that the student's actual teacher is also in the audience, and then the master itself has to, say certain things or flexes their musical sinews or musical muscles, and it becomes really ugly at times, especially if you don't like someone, especially when there's a clash in personality, which happens often in the world of classical music, as we all know. So, but that's not how I perceive my masterclass or our masterclass to be.
No, I agree with both of you. And I think your point, Lorraine, that it's a sharing experience is incredibly important. And I think the best masterclasses that I've attended are where there's a sense of contribution, not just from the teacher, but from other participants. I mean, I think one of the great things about learning in that environment is to have critique and comment from other people. And so long as it's managed in the right way, and a good teacher who's chairing the class will ensure that comments are given in the right way, I think it's a really valuable learning tool. I just want to backtrack slightly, actually, because I looked up, just before we started, I looked up the definition of masterclass in the dictionary, and it says a seminar for highly skilled advanced musicians with a master teacher. so that's another idea of it, which I think we need to debunk, because I believe that teaching in a masterclass format is valuable to students of all ages and abilities. So perhaps you could expand on that, Lorraine.
Yeah, absolutely. I have, as I said before, attended many, both as a teacher, a performer, student, hosted workshops myself. I used to call them workshops for that reason, because of the connotations of the word masterclass. But I think that, again, that can be slightly misleading, and we have to call it something. So, yeah, I feel that the opportunity for, I think it's an opportunity. That's exactly what it is. And I think that we should offer that opportunity to students of any age when they're ready. Obviously, for everyone to get the maximum benefit, the piece of music they're working on must be ready to play. But I think if everyone in the room, whether they're the performer, the student, the teacher, the observer, comes with an open mind and exactly that it's an opportunity for learning, I don't think it matters what the music is or what level it is. I went once to a masterclass run by the ISM, and it was on performance. So there were different performers from different genres of music and from different instruments, vocal and brass, and there was one violinist. It was run by Tasman Little, and it was so fabulous for the performers and for the audience, and everybody was at slightly different levels. Not everybody was hugely advanced, but the way she was so generous in her comments and her sharing her experience of performing, breathing, phrasing, which of course goes straight, all across the board, whatever it is you're playing. It was really, really, really lovely, and that made me sort of see masterclasses in a slightly different way. And you could see people's playing be absolutely transformed, because it gave them this massive confidence. A grade 6-7 level player being given this wonderful advice by this very seasoned, wonderful performer, it just gave them such a boost. And I think that, so I don't think we should be really restricted. Obviously, we can't, to get some benefit from it, you must have a piece that's kind of a certain level. So perhaps,
well prepared.
And that it is well prepared. So that we can offer something, and that everybody can offer something, and everyone can learn from that. So that's my thoughts on that.
Michael?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the train to go past, and I'm sure you guys yeah. Sorry, the window's open because it's very, very hot here in Cape Town. I completely agreed, and I have to just put in an analogy about piece being well prepared. I mean, I used to play tennis a lot, and I use tennis as an analogy. But for us to work on for a tennis coach to work on the intricacies of gameplay and tactics and various sort of spin of how to hit the ball, the student needs to be able to get the ball over the net consistently.
Yes.
Am I making sense? If not, then it's a struggle for both sides. That's how I see it. And just to, I mean, Lorraine shared a very positive experience about Masterclass. Then I'm afraid I have to play devil's advocate and share a very negative experience about Masterclass. And but before I do, I just want to ask Fran's permission. Am I allowed to swear on here, or you rather not?
As long as it's not too fruity.
Okay, I'll try not to. I wasn't there at this masterclass, but this was told to me by a colleague of mine many years ago when he played for a very famous teacher, somewhere in this world. He played Chopin's Fourth Ballade, and he didn't even finish the first line. So the teacher stopped him and said to him, "Who the fuck taught you this piece of shit?" And what is extraordinary about that was I was very impressed that my friend my colleague, still managed to play after that, because how can anyone who had their confidence completely struck after that play, after that's been said to them? I mean, I was told that the golden rule of any conductor when you conduct any orchestra is that even if you don't like what the orchestra is doing, let them play. First few pages, let them play, and then you can stop them and go back and fix things. By stopping them straight away, you completely destroy any sense of confidence, and that's just an example of what I said before of what has happened in masterclass scenario. And I've seen this also. There are countless examples of YouTube that I don't have to mention names, so you can go and see great pianists who flex their musical muscles and who throws tantrums on masterclasses and all this sort of stuff, and the student actually sit there and take it. And sometimes and it takes a lot of courage to actually stand up to say, actually, you know what, sir, I don't like to be spoken. I don't think it's right that you speak to me in this way.
Oh,
And I just don't think it's necessary.
No, I agree, and I think this applies to teaching, whatever the format, that there has to be respect. There has to be respect, mutual respect. So there has to be respect between teacher and performer, but also the audience, the observers need to be respectful. And I think the vast majority of people are. I just wanted to go back to something, I think it was what you said, Lorraine, about how people's playing is transformed in these situations. And I've been both a participant and observer at masterclasses with master teachers, where people, and I'm talking about advanced amateur pianists, where people come to these events and courses and often are very nervous about playing in front of other people and receiving critique in public, which can be, as we've just said, can be very tough if it's not done in the right way. But I've been at events where I've seen people's playing utterly transformed by just a few of the right words from a teacher, and I think those moments are absolutely magical. Same with young students, with children, and they come at these things often with more confidence because they haven't learned how to be nervous. They don't have as much life experience to make them anxious, and again, just seeing transformations, people's sound. I remember being on a course with my then teacher who runs her weekend courses in a masterclass format, and there was a very anxious lady there, and Penelope said, before you play, put yourself into a mood internally that relates to this music. It was the very famous Brahms intermezzo, which is, it appears on a lot of grade 8 syllabuses and is very popular. It's very beautiful. And we all sat very quietly whilst this person composed herself, and then she played, and it was the most exquisitely beautiful playing, and it just took a little time and a few words of encouragement and support from the teacher. And I think that those things as well, I think, beyond the actual teaching and instruction that one can take from masterclasses, it's building confidence and helping people find their own musical voice, as it were. And the best teachers are the ones that stand back slightly and allow the player to bring their voice to the event, as it were.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you, Fran. And I think I've been really lucky in the masterclasses that I've attended and performed in. But I attended one recently, actually, because teaching piano at Guildhall School of Music, we have lots of opportunities. We have lots of people come and give masterclasses, which we can go and watch. And I went with a young colleague of mine, and we went to see Albert II, and I just found his manner was so generous to the performers. And so, he used phrases such as, what do you hear in that phrase, or how do you think about that? And he was genuinely interested to hear what the students' thoughts were before he then offered his own thoughts if there was something slightly different, or and then some really interesting discussions came out of the thought sharing process as well. And how the student heard their particular phrase, or movement of the work and what it meant to them. That was another thing he said, what does this music mean to you? And I thought that was great, actually. And I think if somebody is extremely nervous, that's also a great thing to think about, you know. And you mentioned lessons, and in lessons we are often troubleshooting. You know, a student might come with a technical issue, be that you know, piano geography or sort of a wrist alignment thing, or you know, whatever that particular thing, of phrasing, articulation. And the difference with a masterclass is that's the opportunity to come present your finished work, and then hopefully hear some thoughts from somebody who hears this in a different way, has thought about that in a different way. And when it's done respectfully like that, it can be, as you say, so empowering. And I think that we all understand nerves. I think we all probably experience nerves when we perform as well. So to be kind about that, and sometimes the best performance comes later. It might not be the first performance, but just to allow that student to find their feet, and then give that next opportunity with a little bit of encouragement, and as you say, a few kind words. You know.
Michael, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I kept appearing and disappearing. There was internet problems, you know, at this end. Maybe some sharks was chewing on the internet line. I actually don't know, but yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think if people can bear in mind that masterclass, you're essentially seeking someone else's, it's just a second opinion, basically. And what we are trying to do is we try to be facilitators. We try to give you tips and help out, and you know, and hopefully things, you know, will work, you know, that sort of stuff. I mean, there is no I mean, Fran and I spoke a lot about this. There is no one size fits all, you know, sort of you know, solution. We don't have every sort of solution to every technical problems or every interpretive problem in the world, but it's a case of sitting with the students and be imaginative enough, to be creative enough, and actually listen to the student and actually say to the student, okay, what is it? How do you feel about this piece? What is it that you want to play this way? What is your vision? How can we help? You know, am I making sense? As opposed to saying that, no, this is my way, do it my way, you know. I mean, of course, then it's a exchange of ideas. Say, okay, I studied this piece before, in my opinion, you know, you know, try it this way, but if you don't quite try it this way, then maybe try it your way, and then let's see if we can, you know, if you can convince me. And I completely agree with what Lorraine says. At the end of the day, you know, I always say that as much as my student learns from me, I also learn a lot teaching my students, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
And also the input of the audience, actually. If
Yes.
you're in a room full of other people that play at a similar level, or even those who don't actually, those contributions can be very enlightening. And I think for me, and I'm sure for you too, as participants in masterclasses, it's about having a different light shone on the music. And as you said, Michael, it's not necessarily that this is the right way, because there isn't a right way. But if you've been having lessons regularly with the same teacher, to go and play for somebody else in the masterclass setting can be incredibly valuable. And you come away with some different ideas. That's all it is, really. It's giving you some different ideas. And actually, I have to say as well that the best teachers are the ones that are happy for their students to go on courses and attend masterclasses and actively encourage it, because they know the value of playing for others and playing with others. And I would also say that for anxious students, a masterclass format where the teacher and host ensure that the atmosphere is supportive, encouraging, and friendly, and as relaxed as possible, can also be very empowering and can help people with performance anxiety. It gives them a kind of safe space to play, and also come away with some valuable critique. I just thought we'd move on slightly and talk a bit more about the kind of mechanics, as it were, of leading a masterclass as a teacher, which you have both done. And one of the things that I've always thought is a challenge is that you have limited time, because you know, if it's a day or a weekend, you've got a set number of sessions and a set amount of time. and participants may come with a whole raft of things that they want to talk about. So what do you think, both of you, is the key to making a masterclass run successfully, so that the performer and everybody else gets as much out of it as possible? Why don't you start this time with this one, Michael?
Again, there isn't actually a right answer to, or one answer to this one, but I tend to focus on the thing that I feel the student need the most in the piece, which I think is sensible and, you know, sort of like more common sense. So for example, if a student is playing Mozart and they can't quite execute the Mozartian slur hard, where the second note is there's a resolution, like a appoggiatura of the first note, then we would have to work on that, because that is very critical of to play Mozart, or, you know, as, you know, in fact, classical music, that sort of stuff. But say, for example, if someone comes to me with one of the Liszt Hungarian Rhapsodies, then, and the octaves are not quite agile enough, and of course, playing Liszt, you know, you have got to play octaves, then we have to work on, you know, going about making your octaves a bit more agile. So in my opinion, it's to work on the things that the student feel that will benefit the student the most. But at the same time, sometimes the student comes to you and says that, Dr. Lowe, I would like your opinion on certain passages. What do you think of that? Or can you give me an idea of how you would play this passage, or what you would do here? So that's also possible. But like I said, you know, at the beginning, there is, you know, it's difficult to tell. You know, it varies from student to students. Yeah.
Lorraine?
Absolutely, yeah. It is a tricky one. I think one of the most important things generally is making sure that you stick to time, because I think we've maybe all been in those classes where you think, well, hang on, when am I going to get my slot? Because, you know, somebody's getting so involved with showing somebody various things, or too many things maybe, that you can see the clock ticking away. And whilst that's really interesting, it's really important that everybody feels they've had that opportunity to be heard and get what they want from their masterclass. So I think that whole thing of just having a time frame, and that's really hard, because sometimes it's really hard, because you may do that in a lesson and you may think, right, okay, today I can see what the student's been struggling with, or they may tell you when they come in, oh, I really found this hard in my practice this week. In the masterclass scenario where they're going to perform for you first, you may not know the student, you may or you may not, and you have kind of that short time to work out what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, how could you best help, as Michael said. And it could be a specific thing, or it could be more general, but I think that's where your experience as a teacher and a performer yourself comes in, to think, right, okay, if there's one thing I can offer today to make the student feel better. And I think what's really nice about the masterclass setting as well, you know, often in a teaching setting, we're sat next to the student or near the student, or we may be working from another piano, but we're in quite close proximity. And actually, it's quite nice to sit back away, and because that thing you may feel could improve things could be actually about posture. It could be about seat height, could be. So sometimes those tiny things can absolutely transform, you know, someone sitting really too close to the piano, or it could be the communication. And I think sitting that far back in a masterclass setting is really interesting. You see and hear different things. So I think it's the skill to be able to work out, you know, if there's more than one thing, which often there is, what is going to be the the biggest thing I can do to help the student really lift the music off the page and bring it to life, and make it sound the way they want it to sound, and the way the composer intended it to sound. Yeah.
I think another good point, actually, you just made, Lorraine, about standing back, and I mean, I've noticed at some classes I've attended, what the teacher has basically sat at the back of the room if it's in quite a large space, so they can experience the music as a performance.
Yeah.
And I think you make a very valid point that when you're sitting next to a student in a private lesson situation, you don't hear in the same way. Acoustically, you're not hearing the music in the same way. And I think the other thing then, I think that also for me relates to the experience of observers at these events, because obviously it should be, the atmosphere should be opening and welcoming, and again, the best teachers in masterclasses that I've attended make everybody feel that they're involved. So it's not like you're watching somebody having a private lesson. It's a group forum. And I actually, this relates also to making sure that the music you take to the class is well prepared, because then it becomes an enjoyable performance experience for those who've come to listen and learn. You know, we've all been to events where someone has come unprepared and stumbled through something and slaughtered some Chopin, and it's very unsatisfying and upsetting for all concerned. So I think if we're advertising the classes that we're going to be hosting and running, we should say, please come with well-prepared repertoire. It doesn't have to be a complete sonata or a complete piece, but certainly sections or movements of a sonata which are well prepared. And I think that it's that ensures then that the student and teacher and everybody is going to get the most out of it.
I agree completely, Fran. I think that is so important to come prepared, and we know that, you know, we expect there could be some nervous stumbles, but that's a whole different thing from not knowing your piece yet and wanting to maybe have a lesson. It's not, although it, you know, there are elements of the lesson in that, but it is not a piano lesson. We're looking to offer something else, and the student is hopefully looking for something different, and the audience, as you say, the observers, it's a learning experience for them.
I note that we've got less than 10 minutes left, so I think perhaps to just wind up this conversation, to talk perhaps more personally about our own experiences of attending masterclasses or courses which are run as a masterclass format, and what we have gained from them. So perhaps you, Michael, could kick this section off with talking about first your experience as a performer in masterclasses, and then as a teacher in a master.
One of the things that perhaps the biggest thing, and then when I say this, I think Graham will smile if he watched this video, about masterclasses, is that of all the masterclasses that I've been to, the person that was telling me, you know, what to do with my playing has, you know, it's basically reinforcing what my Graham told me in my lesson. And so I think, you know, that is, and it's also nice in the sense that, you know, that, well, I actually, you know, to use a young person's vernacular, I'm actually working, I actually have a teacher that's legit, you know, am I making sense? Yeah. So, but now and then, yes, you get, you know, someone tries to ask you to do certain things that is quite weird and odd, and, you know, so you sort of like do it, but then you realize that, well, actually that doesn't quite work for me. But then, you know, you don't say it in the masterclass, you know, but like I said, that's my biggest experience, biggest takeaway, and of course to get a difference of opinion, really, and to hear what's out there.
And what's your experience as a teacher in the masterclass format, Michael? What do you feel?
Yes, you know, I think for me, nothing is more rewarding than what Lorraine says, to hear that the student comes with a piece of music and they're so used to hearing it one way or playing it one way, and then when you give them, just, you know, just open their eyes or open their ears, and just to show them little things like the slurs or whatever, and then all of a sudden you can just see them transform. I think one of my, you know, best experience was when I was in one of my classes in Singapore, and there was a very serious girl that came to her master class, and then, you know, everything was very formal, very serious. And by the end of that hour, that 45 minutes, I could see her, she has got such a big grin on her face, you know, and I think that was very special for me.
That's lovely. And Lorraine, now you talk a bit about your experience as teacher and participant in a masterclass situation.
Okay, so as a participant, I'm thinking about experiences where I have deliberately gone to somebody who I know has got vast experience in recording and concertizing certain works, specialize in certain composers. So, for example, if we think about Arte Pizarro and his Spanish music, and as you know, I love to play the Goyescas. So that, you know, taking that to him and working with him and having his own personal connection as well with that music throughout historically, and you know, with his recordings, and that for me is fabulous, because you know, this is a double-edged thing, because as a teacher as well, we must, and as a performer, we must know that the piano repertoire is so vast, we cannot know everything. We just can't. So to go to somebody with a work that you know they have this great experience of working with this, and I've studied it intensely, that was great. And you know, Arta has a way, he uses a lot of food imagery, which is quite interesting. You know, he talks about, okay, think about this phrase as wading through chocolate. And you know, for somebody, if you're trying to get something across really quickly, that's great, isn't it? You know, different things work for different people. I'm thinking about classes I've attended sort of with Leslie Howard, who obviously has a vast knowledge of just about everything, but also, you know, specializing in Liszt, and the way he's fantastic at helping the very finer details of pedaling certain phrases, and you know, the intricacies of pedaling. I mean, he's fantastic at everything really, as is Arta. Noriko Ogawa with her French music, and you mentioned Graham, and I've been to masterclasses with Graham as well as studied with Graham, Michael. And you know, one of the things I love that Graham does is just ask you, you know, how did you hear that? Or have you thought about? And I think that's a great thing to offer as a teacher as well. Have you thought about? Because you're not dictating, you're just offering a different way of hearing it. And that's, I think, really enabling and empowering to a student. And it's about helping them find their own musical voice as well, because they'll go away and think about that. And explore that, and that's how we learn, isn't it? By exploring different thoughts. So for me, you know, from both sides of the you know, as an observer, performer and a teacher, and I think that just having that open mind is probably one of the most important things and the most enabling things to receive and to give. Yeah.
I think that's a perfect point on which to end this conversation, Lorraine. It's so positive. And I hope that people that come to the classes that we're involved in will take away lots and lots of positivity, lots of new ideas, confirm their own thoughts about the music, and basically just encourage people to get huge amounts of pleasure from their music, as well as improving. So thank you both very much. That was really interesting.